This podcast is brought to you by PLI, the Practicing Law Institute, providing resources to legal professionals and the law librarian community. For more information, go to pli.edu/librarian.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Thanks for listening. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in the legal information profession for 36 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations team. For this episode, I had the privilege of speaking with Zanada Joyner and learning about her path to becoming an academic law librarian, as well as her overwhelming commitment to providing both full access and outstanding service to her patrons. We opened up about key issues in our working lives and how we each found a home in law librarianship. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Welcome, Zanada.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining us today. First, wanted you to maybe introduce yourself and talk a little bit about, what you do and how we met and all that sort of thing.
Oh, great. Okay. So yes, I'm Zanada Joyner. So you said all that. So this is currently the role I have as the associate director here, and I oversee collections at the University of Maryland School of Law. And so in this role, I oversee the acquisition of materials in all formats, so digital and print. Also, I support the needs of the law school community by making sure that we're connecting them with the resources and the services that they need for their work. So this role is interesting. It's definitely different than the work that I've done in the past. In the past, I worked more exclusively in public services. So I was helping to locate materials and select and help my patrons select, and students and faculty specifically, because I've been in academic law librarianship. But now I'm at the other side where we're just trying to make sure now I work collaboratively with my colleagues to do the selection, but also to figure out the best way to bring those into our library. So, gosh, Karen, how did we meet? It's been a while. I feel like we met multiple times.
We met at SEAL in person. Yeah. We had been on a bunch of Zooms before that over the years, and so I became aware of you as a player and as a key librarian in the community.
About that. You're kind.
And then we met at SEAL in Richmond. So that was 2 years ago last month when I had a chance. Right. Had a chance to go down there. I missed it then the year after that in Kentucky, and I missed it this year in Atlanta.
Yeah, they're both really good conferences, because I feel like those COVID years where we were kind of separated but together, there were so many Zooms, and that's why I feel like we've met and then we've met again, and so you're right. But thank you for reminding me.
Well, let me ask you this: since I come from Practicing Law Institute now, but I spent many years at Matthew Bender, and then of course they were acquired by Reed Elsevier, that also owns LexisNexis. So I came from the print side, and so I sold books since 1989, law books. I didn't have Maryland, but I lived in Northern Virginia, and I had Catholic and a couple other law schools, GW. But I didn't get to go to Maryland.
That's interesting that you had those areas but didn't have Maryland.
It was all split out. There was a Maryland rep, and I lived in Northern Virginia, so those were close enough.
Well, you avoided the traffic then.
Right. But I spent a semester in College Park. I took an accounting class in, I think we're talking the spring of 1983. So I'm a long, long time ago.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I like.
We don't get the professional campus the professional schools are in the Baltimore campus, right. And so we're here at the medical school, the School of Social Work, the nursing, law, and the dental school. But so we don't get out to College Park as much as we'd like to, and they're not that far, maybe 40 minutes. But it's almost like two different worlds, and I regret that sometimes. It's interesting. It's nice to be surrounded by the professional schools, but it is something when you're on the pulse of the main campus. It is a different experience.
It's a different energy and a different student group. All those
definitely.
things.
The interviews, you're absolutely right. Yeah, my last position was at North Carolina Central in Durham. And so the law school is on the main campus, so we're still there. So you could hear the band practicing, and sometimes you could hear the football team warming up and their playlist, which were not the radio versions. And so that was always, but it was that energy is what you're speaking of. Like you just have such an influx of of students and thinkers. And that
Right.
it was really nice.
Yep. But now you're with the professionals.
I know. Now.
But I wanted to ask you, because I come from a book ground, and then of course we started selling ebooks, and then we started selling digital libraries,
Right.
and oh gosh, Matthew Bender was purchased back in August 1st, 1998. And so that content went, onto LexisNexis very quickly.
Right.
So what have you seen the last couple of years in terms of collection development? I mean, it used to be all print when I started. Lexis was just coming out of Ohio, Mead Data. So in terms of collection development, how long do you think that transition has been going, and where are you guys now in terms of print versus electronic?
Yeah, good. Oh, wow. Okay. So collection development, most of my professional experience have been in public services as a reference librarian. And so in that world, and you're working directly with faculty and students all the time, you are really concentrated on just getting the resources. So however they present them, your acquisitions team presents them. So we would make recommendations for the collection and how to grow the collection and where we thought the collection should go. But I don't know that I was as invested in the complexity of how you balance a digital versus a print collection.
Right.
So here at Maryland, because my role has changed, it is something I think about quite a bit, and it's something we talk about. So I think where we're headed is, and I think these are informed by a few things. I think cost always informs the decisions you make. It has to.
Right, it has to.
I think there's also that when we talk about access, COVID really shaped how we think about access to materials. And I can't underscore that. So I think I like print too. Print comes with its own challenges, though. You have to have the space for one. You have to have, do we have multiple copies? How many are we keeping? How many duplicates? I mean, there's so many things that go into maintaining a print collection. And a digital collection does offer you some things that we just cannot do in print. And so one of them, of course, I think that came out of COVID is how do we provide access as broadly as we can to the community that we serve. At the same time, there are some things that we have in print that we cannot replicate in a different format.
Exactly.
And so for us here at Maryland, we work together. Most libraries, I think, do this now the same way. We have a committee, a development committee. We take advice and counsel from the administration, the library administration, the law school administration, of course, law faculty, and then also our colleagues in other departments of the library to see how they feel and what their thoughts are about some of the decisions that we make. And I think we kind of just make the best decisions for the resources that we have on hand, understanding that budgets are always going to really guide how we move. And so I don't know if that answers your question. I think
it does. It's not like you're saying, okay, we're moving electronic, no more print, because you're getting a lot of input from all the players.
Get input from the players because I mean things are changing, they're evolving. And that, so, and there's some people who are just committed to maintaining the print collection, and I respect that. But I also have to balance that against the staffing. The staffing is no surprise. Library staffs are all across the country are being cut, and we are trying to get more out of less people. And so, you purchase ebooks, I can have them in the collection, in the catalog in hours. You do have to balance it against what you have, what staffing you have, what resources you have.
It's true. Now, you guys serve the students, the faculty. Do you serve alumni?
We do. We do serve alumni, members of the bar and the bench.
Okay, I was going to say the bench, the bar. How about the public?
The public, yeah, to some degree we do. Now, we're very fortunate here in Baltimore in that we have a wonderful public library system, the Pratt Library. And so love Pratt. And Pratt actually has so much. Their collection is vast. They have so many branches that we're really fortunate that we're able to support our public patrons, not just with what we have, but also with what Pratt has. In addition, University of Baltimore School of Law is here, and their law library, the Bar Association library is in Baltimore, so the Maryland Bar Association. So there's a lot of places that our public can access. Now, the state law library is in Annapolis, which is about an hour away, but we have such good relations with our colleagues there that we're able to offer they're able to support public patrons, even if not in person. Again, I think this is
remotely.
post-COVID. We're all learning that we can do a lot of things in more creative ways. And so I think that's important. And I think that in Baltimore City, yes, we do have some public transit. We do have some ability to move about the city, but there are people outside of our metro area who still need access. And that access is complemented by the fact that we're embracing different ways to support
Right.
their needs. Yeah.
Which is terrific.
Yeah. I think so.
And PLI, of course, started as a print publisher.
We
And
did.
and in terms of the book part, we put quite a bit of material up in 2010 when we started. I wasn't there yet, but we started a program or a platform called Discover Plus. And then in 2022, we did a whole complete revamp, and it was renamed PLI Plus, I think, shortly before that. But we continue to add material. I've been fortunate enough to work on the archives, so we're trying to add more and more and more of the archival course handbooks and titles. And actually, Scott, his last name escapes me, but you guys give away periodically material that you're divesting from the library. Scott Alvin, something like that. Anyway, he sends an email out to a bunch of nonprofits and offers these books. And we've gotten several things. And at New York Law Institute, where I worked for 7 years before I came to PLI, we got a number of things that you guys were discarding. And so that was really generous, really a wonderful thing.
I think the spirit here is definitely access, and as much access as we can provide that is consistent with the goal, the mission, the values, the priorities of the university and the university system, understanding that those are not always compatible with what librarians want to do.
Right.
However, in the ways that we can, we definitely want to support, the public generally. We want to support people and researchers, and we want to provide access. And so, and it's tough, right? Because there are times when there are tensions, but I think we definitely are committed to that, to access. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so before this, you mentioned you had been at North Carolina Central University School of Law. And where is that? I should know. Is it Greensboro? Is it?
No, it's in Durham.
Okay.
Durham, North Carolina. Yeah. So I was there for 5 years. So I started, I think, digital services librarian reference, and then I moved into faculty services and eventually became the senior reference librarian. And so I head of that department. And then that role was really interesting, and the time there was interesting. It's HBCU law school.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
Great.
it's a very, the history, the culture, the history is storied, and the alumnus are truly remarkable persons. And so the history of that law school is really rich, and it was very inspiring to work at a school that was so committed to opportunities in law for all types of persons. So it was a really good experience for me. It's a smaller law school, so it's a smaller law library, but I think the work that we did and the population that we served there, very different than the population I have here.
Right.
But it was no less rewarding. It was just in different ways. And before that, I was at the University of Georgia in Athens, another big state institution. And so it's just interesting how your library shifts, especially academics, right, based on the place, the parent system, if you will, like the university system. But it's been really good for my development, and as far as just being also aware of the competing interest, and also just being flexible in how we deliver services and what services that we value and what resources we need.
So how did you become a law librarian? Is this something you wanted to be as a little kid?
No, that's so funny. And so I appreciate you asking that, because I feel like I tell the same story over and over, but it's true. And before law school, I taught 10th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade too sometimes. And I decided that I really wanted to change, right? So as a young woman, I really wanted to change the world. And so I thought, well, how do I do that? So I decided, I was going to go to law school. So I go to law school, and I was in law school in New Orleans, and my second year of law school, Katrina hit the city.
Oh.
So it shaped and changed everything very quickly. And so I'm very fortunate. I don't wish this experience upon anyone. However, what I learned from that experience about people and humanity and about integrity and just it really just changed things for me. So I graduated from law school, clerked for a judge. Became pretty clear to me that I wasn't as interested in lawyering in the sense of taking on clients and doing that. But I had to figure something out. We were also in an economic recession and a pretty deep one. And so I went back to teaching, and at the suggestion of a colleague who was the head of the library, director of the library at the 2-year college I was working at, she said, I think you should go to library school. I think you would love it. My roommate from library school is a law librarian, and she just loves it. And I thought, no, I don't need another degree. I can't
No more school.
I can't afford it. But it was the best decision that I've made thus far. I say all the time, if I had gone to library school before law school, I probably never would have gone to law school, which I don't know to what extent that's true, but I believe it some days. I love libraries. I love librarians, and I didn't understand and I didn't appreciate the collective brilliance of a profession until you really immerse yourself in it. So I speak very highly of my colleagues. So that suggestion led me to library school. And, you're still teaching. I was adjuncting. I was working and trying to find a legal job, maybe try to find a full-time teaching job, maybe. I don't know. It was a really tough economic time. But library school was consistent, and I continued pursuing that degree. And I had an opportunity to do an internship at Rutgers Newark Law Library. And so I always love my colleagues there. They're such wonderful people. And I came home my first day of the internship, and I was just crying on the train, just crying. I just couldn't stop. And, I think my mom picked me up from the train. She says, what's wrong? And I said, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do in life until now.
Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes I still think, I meditate on that experience just because when the days are hard and the meetings are long and your calendar is, blowing up and your email box, I think about the feeling I had that day, that I was really found the place where I could combine my interest in the law, my teaching and instructional background, working with people, working with students, with faculty, with members of the bar, with the public, just working with people in a collaborative way to really support what people needed, the resources they needed, the services they needed to be able to advocate for themselves. And that grounded me that day. And so, that experience changed everything. So from there, you graduate, you move on, yeah, but for me, that's how I got there. So it still moves me to think about it.
Well, it's very moving to hear about. So you found your place.
I did. That day, I just knew it. And, I'm a Christian and I'm a believer. And so you talk about you get, messages from God and things like that. I'd never experienced anything like that. It was more than that. It was just a feeling of contentment, a feeling of usefulness, a feeling of I can contribute here in a way that I've not been able to contribute in other spaces. And it just felt right. The universe was telling me this was where you're supposed to be. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Where did you go to law school?
I went to Loyola University in New Orleans.
Okay, in New Orleans. Do you know Miriam Childs in New Orleans?
I do. Okay. And she's lovely.
Yes, she is.
She's doing such amazing things in her library. I marvel at her. Yeah. I went to law school, and then I was back in Jersey for a while. And then I was fortunate enough to be hired back as of my first full-time job while I was still in library school at Loyola in New Orleans. Oh. And so I became acquainted with Miriam then. Right.
Okay.
Right. So, and it was just a wonderful experience. I was in New Orleans visiting friends, ran into a former law school professor at the park of all places. And then he said, "Oh, come by my office." And we just started chatting. And it just an opportunity arose. The New Orleans, and they have a lovely law library association. And so I got a chance to participate with that. So yeah, it was great. Miriam's very wonderful.
Well, if I could tell a similar story, and this might not make it to the final cut, but I was ready to leave New York Law Institute. I was there just shy of 7 years, just a couple of weeks shy of 7 years. But, I had learned everything I was going to learn. And my executive director is only 4 years older than I am, and she wasn't going anywhere. There was nowhere to go, nowhere up to go. So I started looking for a job. And the normal place to go, I thought, would be a law firm.
Yeah.
And so I interviewed with law firms, and I was 0 for 11 with law firms.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, well, clearly that's not where I'm supposed to be. I thought that was where I was supposed to be, but it's not. So no big deal. I'm still working,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I talked to PLI. They had an opening for library relations manager, and I
Mhm.
didn't get it, but I interviewed with them, and I knew Alexa, and that went on for a couple of months. And February 17th, it was a Friday. I had some Zoom interviews, and I'm a woman of faith. Also, we're Episcopalian. And I was waiting to discern. I was waiting to be told where I was supposed to go. I thought it was law firms. It wasn't law firms. That's
What's the
fine.
law? Right.
I was just waiting to find out. So I interviewed with Alan Cohen, and he's retired now, but he was our chief business officer.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're on Zoom. I'm sitting in my car, and we introduced ourselves, and he said, well, you know what our mission is? And I said, no, I don't know what the mission is. He said, well, we're nonprofit, which I don't think I knew. So we're nonprofit. He said, our mission is to educate as many people as possible.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'm home.
Yep.
Hopefully they feel the same way, but this is what I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
And fortunately for me, they agreed. And so last Friday was my 3rd anniversary here. So I've been
Oh,
here.
that's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's very it's just so transformative when you find
Yeah.
the place that you're supposed to be.
Right.
And
And yes, and Matthew Bender was that for a lot of years, but I
Right.
started there when I was 30, and so that was a long time ago.
right.
So
Yeah.
it was great for a long time, but then things changed.
Well, things change. The business changed too.
I'm interested in your thoughts on artificial intelligence and other library tools and
Mhm.
what they're meaning to you and what you
Oh,
think they'll mean to law schools and
what
what you
they'll mean
think they'll
to
mean to law librarianship. So you can start anywhere in that you would like to.
anywhere in that. So I think, wow, everyone wants to talk about AI, right? And that's we just can't get away from it. And yeah, it's. I was on a call the other day, and someone said, "I'm just tired of talking about AI," but we're probably not tired of the possibility, right? And
Right.
that's what it is. So I think we're learning to adapt with new technologies as we've always been. So I always want to say that libraries have always been on the forefront of technology and emerging tech. So this is not new. This is who we are, right? And
Right.
I joke that librarians they should be called technologists, right? Because that's really what it is. It requires a proficiency with technology that people don't really understand. Like,
And we have always, let me just interrupt you for a second.
yeah,
We have always been the ones who evaluate and
right,
figure out what the thing does
right.
and
What it does, how it can
how
help
we
you,
can use it.
and how we can use it exactly. And so I think we're learning to adapt. We're learning to figure out how these tools will work for us. So right now, in our library, we're of course teaching emerging technology in our courses, and so I do still teach in the first year law library research program, and I also teach advanced legal research. So this spring, I spent a unit on emerging technology, and it includes AI, but I include it as part of a larger conversation because
Good.
I do think we have to place it within that context. Right. So I do think it's important as far as our work product here in the library. I think we're learning how we can best leverage some of the tools. I think we have to embrace them. I think we have to figure out how these are going to fit into our workflows and our processes because we're being, again, expected to do more with less and less persons. And so automation is not new for us. The idea of simplifying systems, not new for us. These are all things that we've been doing in libraries.
Right.
And so that's important. I also think too, I know that you're familiar with the future of law libraries, the AI opportunities, the work that Cass Leskowski and Teresa Miguel Stern were doing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Cass, and I are collaborators on a textbook, and she's my girl. And I'm so impressed with the work that she and Teresa are doing as far as these roundtables. And I'm looking forward to the white paper that they're going to publish.
Right.
Because the paper will really give us a deeper dive into the issue. I don't want to say problem. I want to say the issue of how we use AI and what's the future of law libraries with this technology, but also a path forward, which I don't know that we've necessarily been talking about. I think we kind of nibble around the edges. Like we can use these tools to help with these discrete tasks, and that's helpful. But I think what's important is that we really start seeing how we're moving in a direction that's going to fully be immersed in these emerging technologies and how we're going to use them in every facet of our work. So I'm excited. So I'm excited for their white paper. I too go to all the sessions I can go to. I try to learn as much. And my students were asking questions, really good questions. And they were wondering how this would change their workplace experience and their research experience. And they have lots of questions, and I didn't always have the answers. And that was also part of the course this spring, is that my job is not to hold myself out as an expert on all technologies. My job is to connect you with what's out in the marketplace right now and how can we evaluate it, discern it, use it, shape it so that it's useful to you. And so we did a lot of, for lack of a better term, like book report type things where I would give, student groups would work together and evaluate a tool and come back to the group and give us a full.
Great.
Yeah. And I think that's how you do it. Like you have to really put your hands on it. You got to try it.
Right. And that way they can share the information. They don't have to learn 17 platforms.
And they can't. And they shouldn't. But also every platform is based on some simple precepts that we already know and use. And so, it's very similar to the Westlaw Lexis kind of conversation, right? And the question is, what are you teaching your students? I'm teaching them everything. I'm teaching them how databases work, why databases are valuable. And if you understand those basic concepts, you should feel confident stepping into a new database because they're going to change. They're going to.
Right. And you can apply that knowledge.
And you should. And that's what we want. We want to give people the tools. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I was going to ask how you're handling AI in research and teaching and in other areas. And you've already spoken about how you're using it in teaching. How are you guys using it in research? Do you make it available through the library to your users, to your patrons?
I'm in the world right now more so in the tech services. So I'm not as my hands are not as on the pulse now. So what we're doing is with the direction of the reference and research librarians and at the direction of our law school administration, we're selecting what tools we would put to the front of our community, right? And so right now it has been a slower integration of adding these tools into our like A to Z directory, if you will, or database directory, or even, it's been slower in the sense of like, these are the ones that we would like you all to take a look at, or these are the ones that we're teaching, or these are the ones we're sharing for research purposes. I think it's more working specifically with researchers, using a lot of the traditional legal research tools that we would do and complementing them with some of the other advanced tools and things like that. So, I mean, that's how our approach has been thus far. I don't know if we would it wouldn't be my decision to decide how we'll fully advertise, market, teach, right, or share tools. I right now, we use the traditional tools and then we add some additional components to our instruction and definitely to our one-on-one reference interviews as far as I understand.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. Cause I know you're not in the public service part anymore, but I figured you were in the know.
Sometimes, there's so much to know. I mean, sometimes I know, sometimes I kind of have to, and it's tough. You have to take your cues from what the faculty have expressed, especially when you're in a academic setting, right? But I think it's all workplaces. There are decision makers, and they let us know how far and how fast we're moving. Yeah. And so I think we're just all trying to figure out where that's gonna head.
And that's consistent with what you said early on about you get input from all your user groups.
You do,
and weigh everything.
You do have to weigh everything. Yeah.
Okay. What would you consider the most important learnings that you've gotten in being a law librarian, and things that you would share with other law librarians? So
I thought about this because you had asked me this to think about to think about this question. So I thought about what are the most important things that I would share with fellow law librarians. One, that networks are our strongest asset. And I know that there's a temptation to say, oh, this sexy new thing, or this cool new tool, but no, networks. It's the power of people. It's always been the power of people. And so I'm going to champion my colleagues. I'm always going to celebrate their wins, but I'm going to lean into their expertise. And I'm going to lean into their expertise because they're really, really good at what they do. And I don't want to discount that. And I also, it's a lot like the practice of law. You don't start from scratch. You don't patch up a motion
Right.
out of thin air. You find a template, you work through it. It's the same thing, I think. And I really would say that. So what I would always share with other law librarians is that your professional networks, your professional relationships, as far as working on them, cultivating them, developing them, and asking questions. I get so much counsel. I seek guidance. I seek redirection. I seek, I seek all kinds of things. I mean, I have to have a network of people around me who really I can trust and who will help me to navigate, because it's a very deep and diverse profession, but you need people to be able to navigate this. So that's what I would share with that. And I think the other question was, you asked me, what do I wish I knew, right?
Right.
And so what do I wish I knew? And I think I thought about this because I think I started at Loyola New Orleans as a reference associate in 2013. And I want to thank my former supervisor and one of my biggest mentors, Brian Barnes, a director at that library, who's just been amazing. I think about that. So that's been some time. And what I wish I knew is the value of time, my coworkers' time, my students' time, my faculty's time, just time. That the time is that one thing we can't get back. And so I think just valuing that time and using that time in the most efficient ways. And it doesn't mean that things have to be fast, but just the most conscientious ways. And I think I wasn't always attuned to that. So I think that was one and thing I wish I had known, like just how important time is. And I think the other thing I wish I knew, had been reminded, is the principles of just business and workplace. And my entire career has been in what I'd like to call helping professions. I was a teacher.
Right.
I was a school social worker to some extent, right? Like a lawyer, librarians. Right. We are so on fire for the projects. We love to help people, right? And help them find things and help them learn things. And we talk about that light bulb moment in the classroom. And like we get excited and inspired by the work. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we discount how important it is to be strategic, to be thoughtful about what work looks like. And so is this position providing for you the resources, the employment, the income that you need to support your life and your priorities? And I think sometimes we're so excited about what we're doing that we forget that this is a workplace. It's still a workplace. And there's also there's a time to stay at the job. There's a time to make a different choice. There's a time for redirection. There's a time to have difficult conversations about where your career is headed and what you want out of your career. And I think we have not always expressed that because, again, we want to help people. We want to get them what they need and we want them to be excited like we are. Right. And I think that's great. But this is a business. It's a business and we need to advocate for ourselves, fight for better. I think for so long, we've been excited by the projects and I'm still excited by the projects.
Right.
But sometimes I lost sight of
what's easy to do in the heat of the moment when you've got deadlines and you've got things you care about that you're accomplishing.
Right. Oh, it's easy. I mean, it's super easy. And then, and you get it. And that's what fills your cup. Right. A lot of these professions we didn't join because we thought we were going to be millionaires. And at the end of this work time, we all would like to enjoy like a lovely retirement and a chance to, but it should be good along the journey too. And so I think that that's something that I don't think that I always understood.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, I definitely stayed too long at least 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I was loving it and getting a lot from it. But looking back, I think, my gosh.
Right.
If I knew then what I know now, I would never have stayed that long.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's a really complex conversation because what's too long is relative.
And it depends on what happens later.
And it does depend on what happens later. But you meet people all the time. When I came to Maryland, there were people here who had been working in this law school longer than I'd been alive. And that was
That's really
wild.
something.
Yeah, it was. It was
That'll
something.
get your attention.
It did. It really woke me up to that because so yeah, it changes you. Like, wow. And I just don't think that that's necessarily, it's not to say that an institution couldn't support your growth in different ways, because there are institutions that, and there are people who stay with the institution, but they've moved around in different roles. And I mean,
right. And they're growing.
And I think that has to be a part of the conversation, but I think we have to have the conversation and we can't be afraid of the conversation. See, that's the other thing. I really have such faith in our profession. Like the librarians I know and the ones you know, and the people in information spaces, like they really are committed to creating an environment where people are truly compensated and appreciated for the expertise, the work, the effort that they put into it. And they would like to work in a space like that.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because we do need to do this. No one else has our agenda at the top of their list.
No.
They have their agenda, and that's because human nature. But I want to tell you something else.
Yeah.
When you started talking about that, I was all poised to jump in and say, there was this program at AALL, and they started with that. They started with like, do you pay your people enough? And then I was like, oh, wait, you chaired that.
Well, no, I moderated that panel.
You moderated it.
I was a member of the annual meetings program committee. Let me put a caveat on this, because those persons were amazing. We curated the program, and I was appointed to help them coordinate. And I thought, okay, sure. And I knew some of the speakers they were pulling. I said, oh, these are great. They'll be
and
they
were great.
At the run through, they said, well, Zanada, you should moderate. And I thought, moderate? No. You don't need me. You guys have this. Like, this is fantastic. But they were talking about the future of work. And we talked a lot of things we're talking about, like the work-life balance, which is a joke, right? But for every job. But, we do have to keep talking about it, and hybrid work schedules. And are we adapting to the emerging things that our workers want? And are we compensating them fairly? Are we considering their growth potential? Are we offering them tools to get to the next position? Or are we just trying to keep them here?
Right.
And they had lots of it. Yeah, no, that was a good panel. But no, not my idea at all. But I was very thankful to be able to participate. Yeah, you're right. No, but it was a really good program in the sense that it's just not something we talk about comfortably. And so I'm excited to see, because this is the kind of data that you need when you have to go advocate for yourself. And these are also, and I think it's those profiles too that help you to understand how careers develop. Because I think this idea of just hanging out in the same place because you like it or you love it, but it's not pushing forward the agenda of you. The organization is getting the most out of you, but are you getting what you need out of the organization? And so, it's interesting when you talk to people who say, oh, I accidentally fell into directorship, or I accidentally promoted up. And you think, that's
probably not at that level. That's not an accident.
No. And at the same time, should we put our needs in the hands of just circumstance or coincidence or luck? Of course not. And we wouldn't do it in any other place in our lives, right?
Exactly.
So we can't do it here. So we have to be, focused on, how we will grow as professionals. And so I think that I was thinking about that as just enraptured with the intellectual rigor. And that's something that I definitely wrapped myself around as an early career librarian. I was totally enraptured by the conversation and the intellectual discourse and just being back on a campus. I mean, I certainly, you move away from the academy and you miss it.
Right. And the part where your skills can be used. And
you do. You do. You're trying to find that alignment. And I don't know if any of us ever find it, but I know for me, this has been the place where I've most felt useful. And I feel like I've contributed in ways that are important. So I don't know. It's interesting you asked me that, because the private sector is just not something I thought too much about. I mean, my father was a higher ed administrator. My sister is. My mom worked in higher ed. So I always assumed that I would, the family business, if you will.
Right. Exactly. No, I asked that because the cousin of a good friend of mine has left the small university in Georgia where she was working. She's just like, it was academic. It was academia. It wasn't law, but it was a small college, and she was director of, the little library. And she said they're just getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and she had to leave. And so I am encouraging her to look at law firms. I said, everything you did, all the research, all the
Right.
teaching,
Right.
all the organization, all the management you did, it'll move over.
It will.
It'll transfer. Is there anything else you would like to say or anything else you would like to expound upon, either from the list of questions or anything else that's come to mind? This has been just wonderful. I so appreciate your candor.
I appreciate you inviting me. I was like, I can't imagine what Karen wants me to talk about. I mean, I think we talk about AI research and teaching in other ways. I don't know that we know yet how it's going to shape our libraries, and I think that's true. No, but I do think that our networks are great. I think the people that we work with are really our greatest assets. I really do, and I think so. I want to thank you for that too, like for this invitation, because it does matter. It does matter the people you know and how they regard you and how you regard them. So I think that's the most important. If there's anything about this profession. And I guess it's all professions, but I know this one. So
yes, me too. So I was selling books, and long before I started selling ebooks, long before they even came out, I had the whole northern half of Virginia was my territory. Everything above Highway 64. So I didn't have Richmond, but I had Culpeper, and I had Front Royal, and I had Arlington and Alexandria, and the eastern shore of Virginia.
Oh wow!
Which is like going back in time to the 1950s.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's.
So, but when I would call on firms in DC, I had 3 little zip codes in DC. I had Georgetown and Adams Morgan and another one that I can't remember exactly. Anyway, so I'd call on these places. But when I went to the firms, law firms, and at the time the break-even point was 30. If you had 30 attorneys or more, then you probably had a librarian.
Yeah.
Under that size, they fended for themselves. Anyway, so I would call on law librarians and present the books and tell them what we were coming out with. And it wasn't very long at all. I was like, that's the job that I want. That's what I should be.
Right.
And so then later, 2011, I got my MLIS.
Oh.
And so this is my second career. Oh. And the same with you. Teaching was your first career.
It was. And I actually got a graduate degree in education. So, and I was teaching in the Mississippi Delta. And so, this is a second or third, career. I suppose. Yeah, it's different. It's right. Different. I tell you, library school is, it's undersold. They don't really, right. we don't push it enough. It's the assumptions we'll make about librarianship as in general, right. The study of it, that because there's just not a vast understanding.
We don't have a strong lobbying position.
We don't.
We don't have a strong lobbying presence.
No, we don't. We do not. But it's not us either, right? We're not our greatest cheerleaders, that's for sure. But we should be. We really should be.
We should be. We're working on it.
We're working.
Well, what a pleasure. I think that's a fine thing to close with. Thank you so much for your time and your preparation and all of your work.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. I really do. I'm excited about what we're doing. And I'm excited about the future of our law libraries.
Yeah, me too. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.